Hello and welcome to DB247. Today we're going to be looking at the StageScape M20D mixer. Simon Jones is here from Line 6 to take us through what makes this mixer specifically unique and tell us about kind of the way that different sorts of users can benefit from its very sort of visual interface and the multitude of extra features on board. So I guess the first thing to ask is, obviously this is a brand new venture for Line 6. This is something very, very different from you guys. Why did you feel as though it was time to move into the mixing environment, into the live sound environment?
Golly, where do you start? I mean, going back in Line 6 history, we've had a rich history in developing products that have really sort of changed the way musicians and audio professionals have used gear in the past. Going all the way back to our founders in their development company, Fast Forward Design, and really, trying to reduce the friction in operation, just getting great sound. It just so happens the past few years we've been concentrating on making products to get great guitar sound.
Sure.
But what we realized is, guitarists play live, and we've become very familiar with musician-based customer base, but musicians playing live run into a multitude of problems. So we did a bunch of research a few years ago and realized a lot of that anxiety was born from the fact that operating and getting great live sound wasn't a trivial job. It was particularly when your main focus was performing, which is a very right brain function, creative function, whereas engineering live sound is a very left brain function. And what we found through the research, that the more times you had to sort of context switch between I'm in the pocket, I've got a great solo going on, and then all of a sudden go, but it doesn't sound quite right. I have to go over to my mixing board and I have to tweak the EQ. Sure. And have to engineer, and then you have to switch back into performance mode. And that's where it sort of starts to break down and become quite an uncomfortable experience.
And in terms of the StageScape, then, now that it's finally landed on our shores, and people are able to go in and demo this themselves, and stores across the country, if you could take us through the basics of how that sort of solves the problem, and kind of the way that the StageScape operates at a very basic level to begin with, for someone who's just set it up for the first time, how easy it is for them to take everything live, and how easy it is for them to start messing around with, whatever they need to get themselves a good live sound.
Sure. The big difference here is that each input you can set up with a dedicated preset for whatever that input type is.
Sure.
In traditional mixing boards, you have a nice array of tools per channel, but they're identical, and all of them are either sort of set to 0 or counterclockwise or whatever it is, and you have to know where that starting point is. So, the first thing we've done is we provided that facility. Sort of switching it on, you get a little sort of overview of the screen here. The screen is your main area for mixing, and there's a little demo, and it's all sort of, it's there, it's sort of visual, and the explanation sort of is very easy. But we creatively we operate in the visual domain, right?
Sure.
So we won't go through all that right now, but it's there. If you walk into the store, then you can give yourself a sort of a self demo and a self run through. But immediately, you can see here we've got a visual representation of a stage that you can actually change that background if you want at a later date. You can customize all those things. And let's just say you had a standard dynamic microphone here. You take an input, you stick it into the input here, and immediately you see an icon of a dynamic mic pop up in the middle of your stage view. And if I tap that, you can see a little green light coming on there saying, look, there's input, there's level. Yeah. And if I turn that encoder up, you can see there's level coming up there as well. So immediately what I've done is it's sensed that it's a mic input, and it's recalled on that virtual channel strip all the settings that an engineer would set for a nominal dynamic microphone.
Right.
As far as, this is a good nominal starting place, to the fact that if I plug my speaker into one of the outputs, you can see it sort of engaged there, and there's a tiny little symbol of a speaker pop up. Then all I have to do now is turn up the master volume here and speak into my microphone, and you can see we've got some level there. And I've now set up my PA for a dynamic microphone for a set, sort of a nominal setting, a starting point.
Sure.
Whereas everything up to this point, everything to date, you have to know where that nominal starting point is.
Absolutely.
So immediately we've sort of taken some of the friction away. I can do something pretty clever here as well. I can, one of the things that is easy to get wrong setting up a microphone is setting the input trim. If you set it too low, then you potentially get too much noise, and if you set it too high, then you potentially get clipping, which doesn't sound good at the best of times. So what I can do here is I can choose that input that I want to analyze, and I can talk into the microphone at a nominal level. Talk, chat, and I'll talk to you a little bit. I'm performing, and then analyze this and decide, and it will apply. It says it's going to apply 20 dB of gain, so I'm sort of talking fairly softly right now. I'm going to confirm the change. And now you can see that the input level is a lot higher here. You can see it's a lot better optimized here. So it's quite a complex task to actually understand and be able to do that. So there we go. I've got optimized my dynamic microphone. Now I can go to another level of optimization and say, well, that's a nominal dynamic microphone. In fact, my talent here is a male vocalist. And so I've changed that dynamic microphone and altered the preset in the way that an engineer would alter the preset on a channel strip on a traditional mixing board.
Sure.
And then we can do some other things like this. We can sort of personalize because it's all about building a visual representation of your performance in your band. So we've got Bob performing here on the stage, in the middle of the stage.
If someone wants to go into deeper editing, whether it be adding effects or looking at the EQing, I mean, I know that obviously Line 6's presets have been set up really to tackle people's problems immediately, but I assume there's also ways that they can take things a little bit further and start looking into the specifics of certain sounds if they need to tweak it themselves.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is a classic example. There are a couple of different layers of doing that. And it's not modeling per se, they really are sort of presets on the digital signal chain there. It's not as though there aren't guitar models in there, or that, like, we have other products that do that, and this is, perfect to interact with a pod or something like that. But, an example of this is Bob, on the first layer, we were talking about left brain, right brain stuff. And one of the things that sound engineers do very well is they can translate the word boom into numeric adjustments on an EQ, right? So our first level is we can go into tweak here, and somebody says, well, look, we want Bob's not very clear. Can you make Bob clearer? So we have this XY pad here, and you can put your finger on this button and simply move it towards the word clarity, right? Which hopefully, Bob will sound clearer. Or when Bob sounds as clear as you think you want him to sound, then you just stop moving your finger. And what this is doing under the hood is controlling multiple parameters on a parametric EQ. So it was like your sound engineer growing a couple of extra arms and simultaneously, tweaking all the adjustments. And there's one here for punch as well. So we want him to sound a little opener, or if he's maybe he's rapping or something like that, we want him to sort of like the vocals to punch a little bit. Mm-hmm. Okay, so how would you do that with a compressor, right?
Quite.
So there we are, and also adding effects. I mean, adding reverb or something like that. Sending with a traditional console, sending a channel out and then bringing effects return and all that sort of stuff is a rather tricky concept. But here we can just say, okay, we've got 4 effects channels here, effects buses. We just say amount. At the moment, we've got a hall reverb selected, and so it's just to get Bob to talk until he sounds as though he's in a big enough hall. Or if we can change presets like that as a chamber and things like that. We can also tweak these at a very simple level.
Great.
Oh, we want to sound a little bit more spacey, or we need a little longer reverb. So in a very, very basic level.